Welcome to AIScento Podcast. We explore the intersection of AI leadership, business transformation, and the future of work. I'm your host, John Okoro. Today, we're discussing a topic that becomes increasingly important as AI transforms our world, purpose. As technology becomes more capable, many leaders are asking deeper questions. What should humans focus on? What creates meaningful work? How do we define success in the age of automation? To help us explore these questions, I'm excited to welcome Emille Bryant. Emille is a retired U.S. Air Force officer, leadership strategist, executive coach, speaker, founder of Go, where he helps entrepreneurs, executives, and organizations align purpose, performance, and sustainable success. He is also the creator of QTR, Quality Time Remaining framework, and a strong advocate for what he calls sustainable pursuit of success. Emille, welcome to AIScento.
Thank you very much, John. It's been a pleasure to be here with you and to meet you and your audience today.
Right. Let's get in first and talk about purpose, Ikigai, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and AI.
Sure. Um, where we're headed as a society, and especially in the business community, is that we're going to adopt artificial intelligence. It's not a question of if or even when, it's now. And so what we have to do is start asking, why are we adopting this technology? It can't just be due to everyone else, right? The competitions. We've seen business cycles that do that, where companies, even small companies, try to adopt technology ahead of their stated goals, desires, or purpose. And that is fundamentally a mismatch where you waste time, energy, dollars, and most importantly, priority. So what I want to do is make sure that as we all transition to this new technology, which is becoming inescapable and almost becoming a utility, in that you need electricity to run your business, you need water to run your business, you're going to need AI to run your business. Sooner or later, it will be a utility. So the question is, how are we going to adopt that? Well, what I want to do is bring us all back to a very central baseline of purpose, meaning for the individual, the reason why you wake up, and for the business, the reason why the business was started in the first place. There has to be a core understanding of the community you're serving, the people, the problem you're solving, the people you're serving. There has to be that at the center of this adoption. Otherwise, what we do is in the Air Force, we called it the Icarus syndrome, right? It's where we get enamored with the wings and we fly too high and we end up falling because we don't really understand why we had wings in the first place. Right? I've seen this in the military, where we really love our toys. How fast they go, how shiny they are, how technologically impressive they are. But then we don't understand our adversary. We don't understand how they see their technology, and we don't understand how they see our technology. So instead of responding to the real problem, which is how to defeat the enemy, we end up trying to adopt this technology because we just paid for it, we just got it, and now we have to use it. So the purpose is the link that allows you to adopt this technology in a more thoughtful and maybe a little bit slower initially way, but it's going to be more useful over time as you now can weave it into your core offerings, your core products, your core service, and serve your core community better.
Let's talk a little bit about your journey. So you spent years serving in the Air Force before becoming a leadership coach, consultant, and
Yes.
entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about the transition and what lessons from military leadership continue to shape your work today.
So I spent 20 years in the United States Air Force on active duty, and I also spent 4 years at the Air Force Academy, plus another year at the Air Force Academy Preparatory School. So those 25 plus years of service really inculcated a certain mindset. And for many, they think it's robotic or it's rote. Like I know the rules and I follow them. But honestly, the difference between what I know now and what I knew before I joined the military was I understand how to paint inside the colors or inside the lines, but I also know how to find the lines. I know how to define certain criteria for success. And I know how, in the absence of those criteria, how to translate ambiguity and abstract opportunity into something concrete. So as I built my career in the military, I had this structure that allowed me to operate within it. So I got very good at what I call understanding the box, right? We always hear the phrase, think outside the box. Well, you have to know the box in order to think outside of it. So the military gave me boundaries within which I could operate. So I got good at knowing the box, but I also got good at graffitiing the box, right? I could put graffiti on the box. I knew how to play on those lines. I knew to dance on the edge of success or the edge of failure or the edge of what was right or wrong, not because I was pushing the boundaries, but because sometimes your solutions require that you know every single rule you must follow and stay within them to the limit that you're offered. Other times, you're presented with so many resources and so many opportunities, you can create a margin from the rules and your operation, but you can't guarantee that. And so, in those moments when you had to be thinking and think creatively and use abstract information or use incomplete information, you really had to understand how those rules and your creativity were going to work. And that's what I can bring from the military into civilian life. It is this deep understanding of how to find rules, how to navigate ambiguity, and how to create success when it doesn't look like it's possible, because a lot of times business owners they're flummoxed because they don't know what they don't know. And I'm used to not knowing what I don't know. So I can create boundaries where many don't exist, and I can create opportunities where none seem apparent.
And thank you for your service.
Thank you. It was a pleasure and an honor.
What did the military teach you about leadership, about purpose, and about service?
So, as a leader, one of my core responsibilities to my airmen was to make sure that they knew their connection to the mission, not just the mission that I had in my unit or the days flying. I was an aircraft maintenance officer, so I had aircraft that I needed to fly safely every day, and they needed to be ready for their mission. Of course, there's that. And you can see the result of your day's work when you see your aircraft fly and return home safely. But then there's a connection to the mission of the wing, the larger organization within which we operate on a base. And then that mission connects to the president's strategic objectives and goals. So you need to be able to show a very clear link between some young airman who's only 19, 20 years old, their 8-hour day, their 12-hour day, their 16-hour day, a very clear connection to that, all the way to the National Command Authority, or that's the President and the Secretary of Defense, get those strategic objectives. So in the Army and the Marine Corps, they have something called the strategic lieutenant. The strategic lieutenant is someone who, based on their activity, inactivity, making a mistake or doing it right, could potentially impact how the president makes a decision. So this young lieutenant, maybe fresh out of the Naval Academy, fresh out of the military academy, fresh out of Virginia Tech, ROTC program, that lieutenant may be sent to Afghanistan or Iraq or Iran or somewhere else in the world, and a decision they make on the battlefield, on the tactical battlefield, may have ramifications that the President of the United States must deal with. We need to know how every decision we make, every action we take links all the way to that level. So when you're a leader, you have that opportunity to connect individual purpose to organizational purpose. That's the power of being a great leader, is really giving people that motivation, that opportunity to see their work and be proud of the things that they do. It instills a desire to do even better and to make every hour at work be the best it can be. I know we had you and I grew up in an era where the Army's phrase was slogan was "Be all you can be," and believe it or not, it's not a cheesy slogan. You really do want your airmen to be at the peak of their abilities. When you see that linkage, that's purpose in action. That's how we lead. So the military taught me how to make those linkages, how to inspire people at their level so that the work that they do connects to something greater than themselves.
At some point in your journey led you to the concept of Ikigai, if I said correctly. For those who may not be familiar with the term, what is Ikigai and why did it resonate so strongly with you?
So I was stationed in Japan about 20 years ago, and it was life-changing. Truly was. I was there with my family, my children. So we got a chance to be in the culture and observe the culture from within. And one of the things that I saw that was just so powerful for me was how much energy and effort people put into whatever activity they were engaged in. So if it was manga or anime or karate or bonsai trees or physics or archery, it was just this beautiful envelopment with that activity. And I didn't know at the time what I was observing. I just observed it. I saw it myself. I was like, wow, this is amazing. Even the most rebellious kids, the kids who were quote unquote counterculture, who were, thumbing their noses at authority, even they had a way about them that was very similar. Culturally, this concept is called Ikigai. And that translates to, it's a hard word to translate directly. So some people use a very simple translation of purpose, but it's more colloquial. It's more of a feeling. It's more of a mindset. And the best translation I ran across is the reason why you wake up every morning. Right. So that's a little bit deeper than purpose, because if you really are motivated by something like that, just has your energy, has your imagination, it has your thoughts, you don't hit the snooze button. I wrote a book called Start with a Sparkle, the first chapter of which is Leap Out of Bed Every Morning, because I was so moved by how I saw Ikigai. And when I understood how I could apply that concept in my life, it transformed my world. I use an alarm, but I rarely hit the snooze button because I'm eager to see the day and attack what is going to be a marvelous opportunity. So every day we are living with that reason to wake up every day. Every day we have an opportunity to share, grow, develop, learn, teach, whatever it is we do. That motivator can take us through untold challenges. It can take us to untold heights, and it gives us a chance to really give back to the world around us in a very unique and beautiful way.
And utilizing Ikigai, what problem were you trying to solve in your consulting, in your, in your what you're bringing to the market, to the world?
Yeah, so John, I'll tell you what I observed. So I made the transition in 2012 from military to civilian life. And while I was there, I was a consultant in Fortune 500 size companies. I was a consultant on behalf of the Department of Defense, Department of Veteran Affairs. I also worked in a small business, but I observed a very similar phenomenon across large and small organizations, government and private. There was a ceiling, but the ceiling wasn't, oh, I can't advance. It was fear that people weren't able to express all of their talent on behalf of the organization. There was a it's like a handicap almost. There was a fear that mid-level managers would be surpassed by their team members because if they shine too brightly, somehow that was going to translate to them not being promoted, or someone being promoted above them. There was a fear that there would be this unruly group of people who, when given enough leeway to really create opportunities for themselves and their teams, they would now be ungovernable, unleadable. Right. And so this fear was real. And I was like, what am I observing? Because I didn't see it. And then I began to understand that leadership from not quite the C-suite, but just below it at the director level, at the senior VP level, down to the mid-level supervisor, there's this problem that I was observing. And that is, there was a dearth of understanding of how to bring out the best in people. They wanted rigidity and rules. And I'm like, I just came from a rules-based organization. I just came from a very rigid hierarchy. There's no need for that. We're not doing life and death work. So I built my business in reaction to that, wanting to liberate people so they could really be good leaders and bring out the best in their teams, and accept responsibility when things went wrong and give credit where it was due, which is why I created something called Brazen Creativity not too long after I started my business. And then on top of that, I also, when I wrote Start with a Sparkle, which was before I start my business, I wanted people to see what good leadership could look like. And the problem that I observed in that good leadership void is that people were not recognizing the opportunity to advance the entire organization's agenda. My teams are always known as highly creative. If you listen to me, I'm enthusiastic, I'm passionate, I'm also incredibly knowledgeable about certain things. So when I run out of knowledge, I turn to my team and I say, how would you solve this problem? And when I ask that question, many of my team members would look at me cocked head and they say, wait a second, you're asking us for our opinion? I say, yes, I am. Not only am I asking for your opinion, I'm kind of mandating it. And I need to know what you're thinking. As they got more and more comfortable, our relationship grew and developed to the point where they felt so free and so creative to solve problems. And I just kind of steered their ship. And what I learned from all of that was building a business around helping people be their best self requires a lot of coaching, a lot of people's dealing with the baggage they brought to a job that has nothing to do with the job. It requires people understanding that the best possible opportunity for your organization and for you as an individual is to see your team grow. I have people that I fired, John, fired. And I use it this way. I say, I'm going to give you an opportunity to elevate through another chain of command, through another organization's hierarchy, because I can't use you in this capacity. And there's nothing that you have presented to me that allows me to tap in to the point where I can retain you. But I will help you get a job elsewhere, and I will help you. If you want me to help you, I will help you progress through the next level of job, through the next levels in that job, if that's what you like. I have several people to this day, 10 years later, who call me for references, who ask me to help them, mentor them, who give me high fives when they get promoted or they get pay raises. So what that means is I built the kind of rapport that allowed them to flourish with me and without me. I'm very proud of that. And I think more leaders should be proud of that too. I built a business to help leaders see that kind of potential, bring it out of their teams, and elevate their team members and themselves to the next level of success.
Why do so many successful people struggle to find alignment between achievement and fulfillment?
Because in my course, Awaken to Brazen Creativity, which you can find for free at brazencreativity.com, I use the word barometer. Barometers are a measure of pressure. They help you predict the weather, right? So if we know the pressure goes up or down, we can associate some weather pattern with that. So the barometer people have adopted is external. It is not theirs. So your culture, your family, your school, your church, your synagogue, your masjid, your immediate family circle, your sibling rivalry, all of these things sort of tell you what's important. So a lot of us, because we follow that programming, we get 35, 40 years old, and we find out that all of that programming wasn't for us. It made the culture work. It made the family work. It gave me a tactical win over my brother or my sister. But what it didn't do is give me a fulfilling feeling of success. That that lack of fulfillment in which I've observed across business and across government, I term amplified mediocrity. That is when everything is just okay. Things are just okay. You're not celebrating your wins the way the Seattle Seahawks celebrate the Super Bowl or the New York Knicks celebrate their finals win over San Antonio. You're not seeing that kind of exuberance in day-to-day life. Perhaps you'll see it at SpaceX with Elon Musk and all of the team members who are, now brand new, freshly minted millionaires. But overall, you're just not seeing that. And why isn't that? And that's the question that I had to ask and answer. Why aren't we seeing that kind of exuberance? When I answered that question for myself, John, it was a very clear answer. Nothing that I was told to do was resulting in exuberance the way that it was supposed to by those rules. But when I changed and really dug into what my personal definition of success was, when I shed all of that cultural, religious, familial expectation, and I really looked inward and said, what makes me happy? What makes me joyful? What accomplishments can I attack with such joie de vivre that when I get to that point, I will celebrate like nobody else. That process is where there's a giant disconnect in the world of business. Because we're making Elon Musk rich, we're making Jeff Bezos rich, we're making Henry Ford rich, we're making um, uh, 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 Gwen Shotwell rich, we're making all these people rich, but are we making ourselves fulfilled with our choices? The answer in most people's cases is no, which is why they get the Mercedes and the nice house and the nice cars and the nice vacations and the nice homes, and they're still wanting because no one told them they should adopt a personal definition of success, something that I did myself and that I encourage other people to do from day one.
Transition a little bit to AI now. One reason I was particularly interested in having you on AIScento is that AI is forcing many leaders to rethink their role, their value, and even their purpose. As AI becomes more capable, do you believe that purpose becomes more important or less important?
More and more and more and more and more important. I think the reason why you wake up every day has to be core to your daily life and core to your business. You cannot adopt this revolutionary technology and think that you're going to figure it out along the way. This technology will overwhelm you. It will absolutely. It is literally the collected wisdom of the English speaking world. Everything ever written in English is in the machine. Other languages are forthcoming, but English is done. They ran out. In fact, they are so out of data that they're considering inputting synthetic data. And if you don't know anything about math and statistics, I think that's a terrible idea, but that's where we are now. There's just no more English language data to put into the machine outside of what's being produced on a daily basis. I say that because that's how much power we have to manage and integrate into our daily operation. We have that much wisdom, that much knowledge sitting at our fingertips, and it will literally overwhelm you if you don't have a reason for being. Because you want to take this massive tool and adopt it and adapt it to your ends. Otherwise, the massive tool will end up putting you at the end of its whip, and you will no longer be the master of it. It will, by the default proposition created by all of these giant organizations and corporations that are telling us to adopt it, who are building data centers and carving out ways to input knowledge into this machine, they're going to tell you what to do. And that is the worst possible way to run a business, is to wait for Meta or Google to drop an order on you. It's nice, it's steady work, but what it's not going to do is put you at the lead of your industry. So we got to think through, how does my organization adopt this massive technology in a way that makes sense to my community, makes sense to the business that I'm running, to my employees, and most importantly, how does it make sure that I can meet my customers' need?
What are leaders getting wrong about AI today?
They're thinking that they can wholesale replace tedious tasks with from humans doing tedious work to robot or machine doing tedious work. It's not a one-for-one proposition and never will be. In fact, several large companies have quietly been rehiring when they said they were firing based on their adoption of AI. These companies, who shall remain nameless, but who are all in the Fortune 500, are really struggling to figure out how to adopt and adapt this technology. So they made some bets. One bet they made was, they said, we got to adopt the technology, so we're going to fire a bunch of people just to have enough money to adopt the technology. The second mistake they made was they thought when they fired all those people, the machine was going to figure itself out and fill those gaps created by those humans. Both of those are not true. AI is a panacea. It is an opportunity to leverage the wisdom of the English speaking world in ways no one ever thought possible. However, you need human beings to do that. So human beings have to be, throughout the process of integration, they're not working themselves out of a job. Yes, the machine can learn, but the machine can't judge. The machine's job is probabilities and statistics. It is not judgment. Judgment is a very human trait. We got to use our intuition. We have to be able to understand factors that are not linear. So you have to have some nonlinear thinking. You have to have some illogic. You have to have some emotion. You have to have some intuition. All of those things are not going to be easily replaced by the machine. So when you ask for a one-to-one wholesale replacement, you're missing out on all of those very human traits that are the absolute connection between your business's success and the next level of growth. You need that human touch. How humans are employed will be different in the coming future, right? There's a chance that answering your own phone in certain businesses is just not going to happen anymore. You're just not going to answer your phone. The machine can respond to that. Google, if you ask it to, can set appointments for you where it's talking to a human being or talking to another machine and doing that kind of rote work. However, none of that is judgment. That is still just probabilities and statistics. Where we really got to think through as business owners, as key decision makers, is we got to look at how does this machine help me do what I'm trying to do better? And it's not about profit, it's about service. Every business serves a community. That business can be more profitable, can serve better and faster with artificial intelligence, but you cannot just assume that the machine replaces a human.
And I think that one of the scenarios that people have seen for the future, and I know you're saying there are people who are being hired back, which is great, but is that, the organization, like you said, all the rote work is being done by AI agents and AI, and, then probably you have a few leaders who are orchestrating, that work. How does a leader in your
Mhm.
mind operate when, all of the people reporting to them are basically AI agents?
So this is where organizations, I think, have jumped the gun. Agents are great, but they're still in their infancy. There's still some boundaries that we don't know not to cross yet. So we have to be very, very careful before we say an agent is an quote unquote an employee. An agent is a task capable artificial intelligence. So when you assign tasks to the agent, it can perform those, it can report back that performance. So what a good leader is going to do is it's going to work with the other humans on the team to say, what tasks are you assigning to the agent? How are those agents performing those tasks so we can begin to measure and understand the limits of the agent? More importantly, where does the agent go rogue, i.e., where does it execute commands on our behalf? Because one of the things that a task oriented agent does is it does the little detailed work that go with accomplishing a specific task. And we are not necessarily privy to what those steps, those intermediary steps are along the way. So we need to look at those intermediate steps and make sure that the agent is not closing doors or, as we've seen in several large organizations, erasing entire databases in order to accomplish the task it was told to do. We're really going to have to look at when we supervise agents, right? When we supervise agents as if they were human, we really must understand what are the little, almost invisible tasking, little micro movements that humans would do that a machine would do, but the human has their judgment interlaced in all those micro movements where the machine is going to go very, very, it's going to go fast. It's going to be binary, on, off, yes, no, hot, cold. It's not going to report back when it gets stuck. It's just going to figure it out, because the figure it out is I was told to do a task. That task takes me through these subtasks, these micro movements, and it will just continue working through those. And if we don't know what happens in those micro movements, we run the risk of eliminating something that needs to be saved, saving something that needs to be eliminated, or having success and having no idea how we got to it.
Switch gears a little bit. One of the concepts that caught my attention was QTR, quality time remaining. Can you explain the framework and how it came about?
Sure. So I wish I could tell you the article I read that referred to QTR. I'll have to look it up again because it's been a little while. But the word, the QTR stands for quality time remaining. I took that concept and I played with it a little bit because I had this Ikigai already on my mind. So what I really began to understand was as you get into your elder statesman, statesperson status, the C-suite, the senior vice president, executive vice president, senior director, these levels of success, and you often will think that the best part of your career is behind you. I don't look at it that way. My beard may be white, but my future is bright. I always see my future as better than my past. No matter what height, whatever I've done, there's always something I could achieve or aspire to. So now that instead of I'm looking at, oh man, I'm 55, I need to cement my legacy. I'm I'm cementing my legacy by writing a book that's illustrated, a grown-up fairy tale. I'm writing a series of novellas that will rival Harry Potter in their grandeur, right? Like that is for me the most important thing I could be doing with my energy. So when I look back, it's a series of steps that allow me to build into something greater. QTR is a challenge to people who have accomplished much to ask, what else am I capable of? That may mean a pivot, turning left and trying something completely outside the sphere of what you know to be true or normal. It may mean challenging yourself to aspire to something greater than you've ever attempted before, in line with what you've already achieved, looking at what your past as stepping stones on the way. It may mean taking a leap of faith, going through a valley of relearning and starting something completely new. We're not sure until we challenge ourselves as to what are we going to do with the latter portion of our life. As a young man, I would never ask me to do this drill where I say, okay, you're 25 years old, you have 70 years of quality time remaining. What are you going to do? But at 55, I can ask that question. And so for those of us who have past what we consider our prime, it's a challenge to get us back into the game and think through, what does prime mean? Because my peak earning years are now. So am I past my prime physically, physiologically? Am I past my prime intellectually? Am I past my prime spiritually or morally? Or am I able to challenge myself with the time remaining I have and really make the most of it, which I believe is a challenge that all of us should be looking at, especially as we get into the senior part of our lives, the part of our lives that are where we can look back and say, I've done much, and then look forward and say, with all, I, John, I'll be really blunt. This because you asked me this question, I want to dive in here one little bit deeper. You've heard the phrase, if I knew then what I know now, everything would be different. So if I could go back to 25 years old, knowing what I know now, I'd kill it. I'd be a millionaire. I'd be a billionaire. I'd be all these things, right? So I ask that question slightly differently today. I say, knowing what I know today, what am I going to do with it tomorrow? How am I going to shape tomorrow? Same basic question, but instead of having to go back 30 years, I'm simply starting with my knowledge today. Knowing what I know now, what do I do now? And see what happens from that perspective. It's a little bit different and it's a big challenge, and it's something that QTR really represents for me.
On the leadership side in AI,
Mhm.
one of the biggest promises of AI is that it can eliminate repetitive work, give people back hours every week. If
Sure.
AI successfully gives leaders more time, what should they do with that time?
So this is a promise. This is a promise that we heard from the internet age. So you and I are of an age where they told us that going paperless was going to save us time, right? We transitioned from putting everything on triplicate and carbons and all that stuff to email. And then they said when the internet came along, they said, oh, okay, now you have access to the world's information at your fingertips. It'll save you time. None of us are working less. So I'm not confident that we will necessarily work less in the future. However, if I take your question at face value, here's where I think our leadership minds must go. what is the quality of the interaction I have with my team? Because in today's environment, especially as we're just now adopting AI, in today's environment, we are able to hide behind the volume of work that comes across our desk. I have so many emails every day. I have so many phone calls every day. If that volume shrinks, do I have the ability to connect as a human being to other human beings, to inspire, to motivate, to get to know what their desires are, their motivations, their Ikigai, what is giving them fits, what's keeping them up at night? Because now that I have time, something that Sam Walton said should stick out to all of us who have any business background: MBWA, management by walking around. If a leader has time and their organization isn't completely overwhelmed by AI, then they need to get their master's degree and their doctorate degree in MBWA. Get to know your people and inspire them to use these tools and this technology to either solve the problems that they see, look for problems they can't see, or start their own thing and bring them into the fold. I studied a concept called intrapreneurship, right? Where a larger organization sponsors an employee, perhaps a team of employees, to act as entrepreneurs within the organization. This is the time for intrapreneurship, where we can start asking people, if I gave you X resource, what would you do with it? And see where they run and where they take them. There's lots of opportunities in this market space, but we're going to have to use this time release to solve some problems that we don't even know we can solve because we've never had time to. But I'm going to start with MBWA. Get out there, get to know your team even better, and get to know what inspires them, what motivates them, and where their Ikigai lies, so you can use that to build a great organization. And if you're not a good leader, now's the time to become one, because although it's not a born leadership, you can learn good leadership and you can practice it, and you can be humane and genuine and authentic and learn it too. And a whole lot of people are expecting a lot more humane leadership in this era than ever before. Now's the time, with the AI helping us release us from that tedium. Now's the time to become that leader you've always wanted to be or always wanted to have.
And I think that concept from in Japan, we did a lot of used to do a lot of lean and as they call it, go to Gemba. The I'd say the idea of going to where the work is happening. So I think
Mm-hmm.
similar to the leader management by walking around you described. Do you think that most leaders are using technology to create more meaningful work or simply more work?
It's the latter. It's definitely more work, and this is the problem with American business, right? We measure our success on uh, how busy people look or how busy I feel they are, instead of looking at not just the output, not just, okay, how many sales did you get? How much money did the company bring in? How did our sales team do? All those sorts of numbers, those KPIs, right? But really looking at, is all of this work the right work? This is a time to filter out work for work's sake. This is a time for people to really challenge authority, challenge the way we've always done it, challenge every single assumption. This is the time, excuse me, to really ask and answer questions that have been lingering for years. There are problems we're numb to in organizations. I watched it in my Fortune 500. I've watched them in government. I watched them in the military. We are numb to the pain. I want to take that Novocaine away. I want to feel the spur in my heel. I want to know what's digging at me, because now I can solve it. I have the tools, the time, the ability to solve those problems. So it's time to stop looking at work for work's sake and look at, what are the problems we can solve, and are those problems going to improve our ability to serve our community?
If someone listening today wanted to improve their quality time remaining, what's one practical step they could take immediately?
One practical step they can take immediately is, what has brought you joy? You really need to answer that question, because a lot of us, we're not feeling joy anymore. Is it comic books? I'm a comic book collector. I love comic books. Still do, have been collecting since I was 12 years old. So my comic book collection is fairly extensive. I stopped collecting uh, individual issues, and now I collect trade paperbacks, right? Collected issues. And I do that because I, A, love comic books, and B, I learned so much from them. Didn't realize how creative my mind was based on having read so many comic books younger. So I love the fact that I can reread comic books and keep my mind active. Part of my QTR process is just remembering what gave me great joy, because I need to bring that joy out in my life. And this world needs more people who are trying to work toward their own personal joy. As long as your joy isn't robbing banks or hurting people or doing things that are detrimental to society, why wouldn't you re-examine what gave you great joy and bring it out into the forefront of your life? There's zero harm in doing that. The next step, as one of two, is, can you share your joy with someone? It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a public speaker. You don't have to be exuberant like I am in this moment, but can you share your joy? Where would it be best for you to share your joy? Ignite that joy, share it with someone, with a group, right? So perhaps I put an ad out, the old meetup.com or Craigslist, and I say, hey, I want to share my love of comic book collecting. Maybe I build a community. Maybe all I do is bring people together. But in doing so, perhaps I gave them license to feel comfortable with what often people associate with childhood, which in fact is, maybe it's a good business opportunity. Perhaps it's a good social opportunity. Perhaps I can help people meet, maybe even make a match. All of those enrich my QTR, because now I am taking my joy and I'm sharing it. So those are two practical steps we can do right now to embody QTR.
Let's talk a little bit about sustainable success and human creativity. Major theme in your work is sustainable pursuit of success. How do you define sustainable success?
So I use Earl Nightingale's, he's a great business thinker from the 60s and 70s. But Earl Nightingale's definition of success is very crystal clear, and I love it. Success is the progressive realization of a worthy ideal. So those four words, progressive realization and worthy ideal, I break down in my work. I need people to be on a journey where they're constantly improving, iterating toward something that makes them want to wake up every day. So that progressive word is very important because it means you're getting better. You've heard the old concept, get better 1% per day. I don't care if it's 0.1% or even 0.01%, but that progressive word means improvement every day. So I may do 50 push-ups every day, but are my 50 push-ups in perfect form? Are they slower or faster? Different grips, right? I can use those kinds of concepts to see progressive. Realization means something that was envisioned becoming fact, becoming reality, becoming three-dimensional. We can concretize a vision progressively, bit by bit, piece by piece. Disney World was not built overnight, right? The greatest uh, endeavors, movies are not shot in one day, or rarely are they shot in one day, right? It takes time to take a vision and put it into reality. Look at George Lucas and what he did with Star Wars in 1976, 1975, when he was filming. He invented technology that did not exist in order to realize his vision. Progressive realization of a worthy ideal. Worthy meaning it's got to capture your time, it's got to capture your attention, and then ideal meaning you may never get to the exact state of affairs that you envision, but it's worth every minute trying. When we start with that assumption, we start with that definition of success, a progressive realization of worthy ideal, now we have customized the definition of success. Remember earlier in our conversation, we talked about how people are adopting other people's barometers for success and finding themselves unfulfilled when they achieve them. This gets us back to a customized definition of success. So I say, define and pursue success on your terms. So that we've done that. Now we talk about the sustainable part. I've observed business leaders, entrepreneurs, key decision makers, managers, Homemakers, completely burnt out. They've destroyed their families, they've destroyed themselves, their health, trying to achieve some level of success that was already artificial. If you're going to achieve success, you have to mind that your body needs 6 to 8 hours of rest every day. So I start every engagement where somebody asks me about the sustainable pursuit of success with how much are you resting? Because without rest, there is no regeneration and there is no sustainable. I do not expect everybody to work 6 8-hour days. I do also not expect them to work 16 or 18-hour days consistently. There has to be a spectrum, and rest has to be important, has to be, in my opinion, your number one priority, because without a healthy body and healthy mind, nothing else matters. So the sustainable pursuit of success places rest in its proper context and then puts your work, after you've done the definition of success for yourself, into its proper context. We make ourselves more efficient. We make ourselves more effective. We build into our day sustainability so that instead of us burning out at the end and having $1 billion enterprise that no one loves me, they hate my guts, they think I'm a stinker, they think that everything about me is just absolutely ugly. I would like to have healthy relationships, healthy mind and body, and a healthy business. I think you can have all three if you understand how to architect your pursuit of success sustainably. And so that's where I build a life model that helps people make decisions about how to preserve their health, their sanity, their relationships while achieving what they say they want.
Why are so many successful people burned out?
Because nobody told them what I just told them. Rest. Carve out 6 to 8 hours of, I didn't say sleep. People assume when I say rest, I mean sleep. No, I mean take time for joy, for play. If you have children and you've not played with your children in a week or two, you're not resting. Rest is all of these things. It is taking the mind. Mr. Spock in an episode of Star Trek said, the more advanced the mind, the greater the need for the simplicity of play. Like this is a crazy important element that people don't understand until their bodies tell them to rest. Your body will shut down. I've had clients who are in the hospital, not because of an illness, but because their bodies literally shut down because they were working 18-hour days for months at a time. You cannot do that. That is why I created the Sustainable Pursuit of Success, because I've witnessed burnout. And we've got to get away from this my body is my sacrifice mentality. Your body is all you have. It's one time, one shot. You've got to figure out how to use this body effectively and efficiently to achieve what you say you want without burning out at the end and lying in a hospital. I don't want to be a billionaire who is on oxygen and 1,000 shots and pills. I want to be someone who's healthy, both in body and mind, who's got great relationships, and whose bank account reflects the effort of the work he put into his life.
Many organizations are adopting AI primarily for efficiency. How can leaders prevent AI from accelerating burnout rather than reducing it?
It's got to be used for creativity. It's got to be used for the most important element of work, which is the human's interaction with the opportunity, right? So at the point of sale, especially in customer-facing organizations, you've got to know what the customer's feeling. You've got to be able to say to the customer, I hear you, I see you. Here's a case in point. I want to use Schlitz beer. Most of us don't know Schlitz beer, but at one time, Schlitz beer was by far the number one beer brand in America. People loved it. It was everywhere. It was ubiquitous. The people, the leadership at Schlitz were like, well, we can make more money. Even though they were number one, even though they were highly profitable, then we can make more money. So they changed their formula, bought cheaper ingredients. Immediately, the people recognized that the quality of the beer had changed. Schlitz went from number one to now gone. We don't even know the name unless you know a little bit about business history. I'm telling you that story for a reason, because if AI comes in and does that and makes a Schlitz out of you, you run the risk of disappearing from the market space. AI cannot be used to drive your teams harder. I can make more money. I can improve my profit margin. I can get more out of my workers. I can get more uh, productivity output. American workers are the most productive workers in the world. That is not even in question. But wages have not kept up with that productivity. So here's an opportunity for wages to keep up with productivity, because now we have ways to increase our profit margin without asking people to work, quote unquote, harder. So now this is where I think organizations have a huge opportunity. Are you really asking your team members to think as they adopt AI? Not to train the model so the model can replace them, but to give their human intuition, their human observation, their human ideation an opportunity to lift and elevate the organization. We have a really sweet moment in business history where we can make the worker not only more productive, but also much happier. But we can't do it without thoughtful analysis of the tool and the desired outcomes we want with it, and then inviting every worker to figure out how their use of the tool enhances their life and the organization's success. There will be burnout, and people are going to burn things down literally if we're not careful, because they're going to go from burnout to anger. I want us to be more thoughtful and more reasonable, because the tool is so amazing. We have an opportunity here that we just can't miss.
All right, let's talk a little bit about human advantage here. As AI becomes more capable, what uniquely human capabilities become more valuable? Like wisdom, judgment, empathy, courage, creativity.
Yes, 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 yes. But here are three things that I've been sort of harping on for the last year or so as the AI revolution sort of overwhelms us all. First is observation. You and I can walk into a room, and without really doing a deep analysis, we can figure out what's wrong or what's right. It feels right to us. Maybe it's a bar or a restaurant, perhaps it's a waiting room, but you can tell an organization that is really firing on all cylinders as soon as you walk in the room. AI can't do that. AI can't walk in the room, and if you put a camera in that room, it couldn't say, this organization is running nicely. You and I can do that. You walk into a doctor's office and that doctor's office is running smoothly. They know how to greet you. They know how you're not waiting an excessive amount of time, even when the doctor's behind and you're getting updates. Oh, we're sorry, the doctor's predisposed with another patient, but they'll be with you shortly. You're getting all sorts of feedback that organization is excellent. That observation is powerful, and it's only attached to human senses. Even in the far future that I can see, if there's a linear progression of AI on the LLM, the language model, right? Language learning model, that model does not have the kind of intuition that other models that are called deterministic or versus probabilistic are going to have. So there's that. The second thing that I think human beings are going to be really good at is, based on that observation, ideation. We can think, oh, okay, that's a great idea. Oh, I love that. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to borrow that. I'm going to amalgamate. I walked into this doctor's office and saw this, and I walked in this other doctor's office and I saw that. I can bring those two together and create something wholly new. AI can't do that. And AI shouldn't do that. That is you and I, with our human understanding, go, man, because the context of our ideas is really powerful. So we can contextualize an observation and turn it into an idea. And the third thing we can do is innovate. The bridge between innovation and ideation is iteration. We want to iterate, and that's where the machine can help. So now we can bring the machine into the human fold: observation, ideation, innovation. Here's the machine covering the gap between ideation and innovation. And where we humans can is we can now monitor the iterations and say, oh, that's it. Nope, that's not it. Keep going. Nope, that's it. That's it. The element of this iteration plus an element of this iteration, there's our innovation. That's where the sweet spot is. The machine can't do that. Here's what the machine will do, and it'll do it brilliantly, by the way. It'll give you a probability, but only you and I can turn that probability into a reality, because we're the ones who are going to use judgment to know that that probability is the right probability for this situation to turn into that innovation that we can use to capture market share or improve serving our customer or make our lives better as we do. It's always, to me, the human being gets to judge between two things: same workforce, more output; same output, smaller workforce. Those are your two options. If we want more output, whether it's quality or quantity, that's where we can really leverage the human being, because now we know, what does that mean? We can ask that question. If it's same output, smaller workforce, then we can leverage the human being again. Okay, where's the critical path? What are the things that really make us work, make this tick? The machine can give us tons of inputs, but at the end of the day, it's our judgment that's going to be the one that creates that fishbone diagram or whatever other critical path tool you use to be able to say, now that's how we get to the same output with a smaller workforce. And it's not because we're firing people. People retire, they move. There's all sorts of attrition that happens. This is an opportunity for us to manage our organizations differently based on those concepts.
You're also the creator of the Awaken to Brazen Creativity program. That's especially interesting because the AI can now generate ideas and content, images, and even strategies. I know I use it for a lot of my content creation. What does brazen creativity look like in an AI-powered world?
Ooh, that's a hard question. So the word brazen translates, it's just another word for audacious or bold. And I really think that now's the time for people to shed conventional wisdom. I told you earlier in this conversation, I see AI as a tool that has access to the accumulated English language knowledge. So this is an opportunity for us to pull from that knowledge and be incredible, like turn left, turn right, zigzag. Like there's no need to go straight anymore, because this is something that I teach is embracing creativity. It's one of the lessons is like failure is mandatory. You must fail. And the reason why I'm trying to teach people in this lesson how to fail is because especially in Silicon Valley, they say fail early, fail often, right? How many rockets has Elon Musk blown up to make SpaceX a $1 trillion company? How many rockets did we blow up to put a man on the moon? How many cars did Henry Ford crash before he got it right? How many times did Edison burn out a filament before he got the right one that he and Lewis Latimer perfected into the light bulb? There's a ton of failures that precede great success. I need people to use artificial intelligence boldly and fail miserably in the environment where knowledge is the only thing at stake. You can use AI to simulate so many things. Why aren't you doing that? You need to be, as a worker, as a leader, expecting failure after failure after failure. That's the ladder of success. You cannot say, I want 100% no fail. I understand no fail. A friend of mine named Jason Harris has something called no fail trust. It's a beautiful model. And his no fail trust concept is absolutely what a lot of business leaders are craving right now, because there are missions and opportunities that cannot fail, must be right the first time. He was a special operations pilot. He understands no fail. I was an aircraft maintenance officer. I understand no fail. But I'm telling you, if you do not understand the concept of failure, you will not succeed, or you will actually impede your future success in an environment where you have a tool that can simulate literally anything on the way. Why would you not use that tool and fail 1,000 times on paper before you ever tried something in real life?
Let's go to a rapid fire round now. So just give the first word or sentence that comes to mind in response to each of these. Okay, ready?
I ain't scared of you, John. Let's go.
What's the most important leadership trait for the next decade?
Humanity, humaneness, the ability, empathy, the ability to connect to human beings. We're going to be inundated with machines, AI, robots, artificial intelligence married to robotic intelligence. we're going to need more and more human connection. If we don't, we run the risk of not only alienating ourselves, but perhaps raising a generation in a culture that doesn't value humanity at all.
What is the biggest AI opportunity leaders should pay attention to?
The biggest AI opportunity leaders should pay attention to right now is the fact that they can augment their human beings with this intelligence that can do so many things. You should be asking your people to simulate everything that's going on in their duties. They should be able to forecast tomorrow, use the tool to see they should have X-ray vision now. That's how good this tool can be in the hands of people who are using it.
What's the biggest AI risk that leaders should be thinking about?
Thinking that you can replace human beings with AI and there's no cost other than the cost of the AI. I kid you not, too many people are eager so American business salivates at the opportunity of driving down labor cost. That is like it's the Industrial Revolution has just labor, 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 labor. Now they're looking at perhaps labor can go to zero. Here's the fear. If labor goes to zero, who's going to buy your product? Because if the other guy's employees are fired and your employees are fired, they don't have jobs that can afford the other guy's product. We have to be in an environment where the output of human enterprise or of any enterprise serves a human. Otherwise, we're just going to build data centers on top of data centers. Okay. But something a wise business leader said, I think it was Ray Dalio, artificial intelligence doesn't buy anything.
And I think some people would say that universal basic income will solve that problem. Do you think so?
I have this funny feeling about universal basic income. I love the concept because I've seen some of the studies, Oakland and Sweden and a couple other places. But here's the rub with UBI. Where's that money coming from when nobody has a job? Right? There's going to be a giant chunk taken out of the workforce. That chunk pays taxes. Those taxes pay UBI. So if you do not have a workforce generating income, where does UBI come from? I'm not worried about taxes going up or down. I'm talking about, is there a taxable base from which money can be derived?
Right. What's one habit that consistently improves performance?
Reading, 100%. Read, 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 read. I don't think people give reading, I'm not talking about articles on LinkedIn or even the Washington Post or New York Times or Financial Times or the Economist. I'm talking about reading books. I don't really care what books you read. I read comic books, and my creativity is through the roof. Uh, but books, read books, actual physical books. There's a ton of studies that have been produced in the last 10 years that talk about the difference between reading on a screen and reading a book. The physical book, the tactile feeling of the book does something to your memory that allows you to retain and access information differently than when you read it on a screen. Read is the number one business tool any person can adopt for success. And if you're not a reader, audiobooks count, but only if you're an oral learner, not just because it's convenient. Oral learners, audiobooks. Everybody else, read.
And in terms of purpose, what's one question that everyone should ask themselves?
Why did I wake up this morning? Why did I wake up yesterday, and why will I wake up tomorrow? And if the answer is metro boulot dodo, then you should not. You should reframe your entire life immediately. Your reason, the French use that, it means wake up, go to work, come home, sleep. Right? Metro boulot dodo. If your life is just wake up, go to work, come home, sleep, break that now. You have to have a reason for being, a reason why you wake up every day. And if you do not have it, then your immediate goal, which I would love to help you with through Start with a Sparkle, is figure that out.
Okay, final thoughts here as we wrap up. Many of our listeners are entrepreneurs, executives, consultants, and business leaders navigating tremendous change. What's one piece of advice that you'd leave them with as they think about leadership, purpose, and AI?
Embrace the opportunity to break everything you knew as true. There is no assumption that should be a sacred cow. Everything is subject to change. Embrace that opportunity. The clay is about to get wet again. This is what I say when I'm talking to, especially when I'm coaching. When you have wet clay, you can shape it and mold it. This new business environment is going to absolutely ask everyone to break old habits. You do not have to be a slave to what you did 100 years ago. In this environment, you can ask a question. If it works, don't change it necessarily, but question it. Question everything, especially question authority. There's no reason for any person in this world to lie, steal, or cheat when the opportunities using AI are right in front of us. Social media, AI, and your human connection are absolutely all you need to succeed now. So there's no reason to assume what worked yesterday will work tomorrow. Test it, figure it out. The clay is wet. Mold something new.
All right. For those who would like to learn more about your work, where can people connect with you? Where can they learn about more about what you're doing in terms of your book, coaching programs, speaking engagements, and other resources?
So you can reach me at myname.com. It is my name, first name dash last name, Emille-Bryant.com. You can reach me at emillebryant.com. You can reach me at startwithasparkle.com or on LinkedIn. I am always on LinkedIn. That is my number one social media. I have a presence on other social media, especially YouTube and TikTok. But if you really want to talk to me, emillebryant.com and start with a spark or LinkedIn.
All right. Emil, thank you for joining us today. One of the things I enjoy most about the conversation is it reminds us while technology continues to evolve, its human questions remain. So we have a lot outstanding in terms of the humanness of it all. Who are we? Why are we here? Why are we here? What are we building? And how do we use technology in service of something meaningful? AI may transform how we work, but purpose still shapes why we work. And we thank you
Yes.
for sharing the thoughts, experiences, and wisdom with us today. And thank you for everyone who joined us for this episode of AIScento. If you enjoyed today's discussion, please like, subscribe, and share with your network. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your comments. And how do you think that AI will impact purpose, leadership, and fulfillment in the future? And we appreciate you joining us. And until next time, keep learning, keep innovating, keep building a future where technology and humanity thrive together. Thanks for joining us on AIScento.
Thank you.